Hi everyone, my name is Jade Calver. I own and operate Calver & Associates Canadian Immigration Services. Today I'm going to talk about healthcare in Canada. In particular, what temporary or permanent residents need to know about our healthcare system when they first arrive in Canada. Lots of people, when they're considering coming to Canada or they're actually moving to Canada, my clients will ask me, Jade, how does the healthcare system work in Canada? We hear that it's provided by the government, but we don't know to what extent. A lot of my clients come from countries where their healthcare isn't covered or it's completely covered by the government, and so we need to talk about healthcare in the Canadian sense. The first question people usually have is, how do I find a doctor? If I have a health issue, how am I going to see a physician in Canada? So this really depends on what your status is in Canada. I'll talk about temporary residents first. If you come to Canada as a temporary resident, you do not qualify for any provincial health care. So healthcare in Canada is overseen by the provinces. In Ontario, there's the Ontario healthcare system and it's covered by OHIP. If you are in Canada, so if you're in Ontario visiting as a visitor, you should purchase medical insurance to cover you in case of any medical emergency. As a visitor in Canada, you're not funded at all by the government and you'll have to pay out of pocket for any medical issues that arise. If you're a temporary resident, such as a worker or a student, it really depends. So in Ontario, as a student, you'll pay for private insurance through your school, and usually that's included in your tuition fees. And so that's how you access medical services in Canada. As a worker, you can qualify in Ontario for an OHIP card for medical coverage, but you need to show that you're working full-time and that it's a permanent position, so for at least 6 months. So if you come here on a work permit, you would need to take your job contract. So usually people will get a letter from their employer and they'll bring it to a Service Ontario, and then they can register to get an OHIP card. So it needs to say that you're working full-time, so at least 30 hours a week, and that it's a permanent position, so for at least 6 months in duration. And it's important to note that there's a waiting time. So if you arrive, say, tomorrow and you have a full-time job in Canada, you need to make sure that you understand that it's going to be about 3 months until your OHIP coverage kicks in. That's why I always advise my clients when they're first moving to Canada as a worker that they buy temporary medical coverage until their OHIP insurance kicks in. Lots of people, so if they're on international experience class permit, so working holiday visa for example, they think that they can't get any medical coverage because they have to show that they have purchased medical insurance before they come to Canada. But if you do get a full-time job that's a permanent position, you can just bring that letter into Service Ontario and actually get an OHIP card to cover you while you're here in Canada. So that's everything for temporary residents. When it comes to permanent residents, it's the same process really, but you don't need to show that you have a job, because as a permanent resident, same as a citizen, you can just qualify for OHIP. So you just go into Service Ontario, you just have to certify that you're going to be residing in Ontario, and it takes about 3 months for your OHIP to kick in. It's important that you bring proof that you actually reside here, so usually through a utility bill with a piece of mail, and then you just show that you actually live here in Ontario, and then your OHIP kicks in about 3 months. Again, I recommend that you have purchased temporary medical insurance for the first 3 months you're in Canada until your OHIP kicks in. Same thing if you're a Canadian citizen, so if you have a child abroad and they get citizenship through you, keep in mind that their OHIP won't kick in for the first 3 months, so I recommend purchasing that medical insurance. Then when you're in Canada and you actually are covered by OHIP, you can access most physicians and specialized physicians free of charge. They're covered through OHIP. The only issue is that sometimes we have a shortage of doctors in Ontario, so it can be difficult to get in to see a doctor. So you should register with a program. It's called Healthcare Connect in Ontario, and what this does is that you register and you put your name on a waiting list. And this is to get yourself a family physician. So the family physician is a local physician, and you're registered with their office, and you can call and get an appointment with them for non-medical emergencies. Especially for permanent residents, I recommend registering for this service when you know that you're moving to Canada, because this way you can get registered with a physician for yourself and your family. Some people will be covered through additional medical insurance through their employer. Keep in mind that you can only actually access these services if you have an OHIP card. So even if you're covered for medical benefits with your employer, you have to wait until you are eligible for an OHIP card in order to actually access these additional benefits. So keep that in mind. It doesn't cover you for medical emergencies if you don't have OHIP. So that's everything when it comes to getting government-funded medical insurance, especially in Ontario, as a temporary or as a permanent resident. If you have any additional questions, you can contact us. We're at calvarimmigrationservices.com.